In this video, we'll take a look at some introductory ideas for Adobe's Photoshop. We're using Adobe Photoshop CC 2017. The first thing this video will examine is how to create a new file or canvas. Second thing we'll take a look at are the tools, where some of the basic tools lie and live. We'll look at how to use the paint bucket and how to arrange windows. So the first thing we see when we open up Photoshop is a screen that probably looks something like this. And the first step is to create a new file or canvas. So we can go up to File, we can click New. We can go up to File. So we can go up to File and we can click New. Photoshop will ask us about a new document, and here you can see some of the recent size documents or canvases that I've used in the past. But before we do that, we can come over and take a look at the units of measurement. We have pixels, inches, centimeters, millimeters, points, picas. A general rule or good idea to understand which unit of measurement you'll use for the canvas can be determined by where you would like to ultimately use the image. If it's a photograph that we hope to print as a 4x6 or an 8x10 or poster size, we would be using inches. If it's something we're making for the web, we would use pixels. And then of course we have metrics and points and picas, but for the most part we'll use pixels or inches. For this example, I'm going to just choose pixels since it's already selected, and I'm going to make a square that's 800 by 800 in height. Also notice the resolution is set to 150, and that's fine for this example. So I'll hit Create. So you can see we have this file, this new document sitting in front of us, and it shows up white in most cases. And now the next thing we'll look at, we'll begin to take a look at some of the tools and where they're found in Photoshop. If you take a look at the very top, you'll notice there's a series of text menus. Going across them quickly at the very top, many of the things we will use will be in here. You'll also notice there's a vertical menu that has icons. Many of the tools we'll use are in here. So one thing to take note of in this vertical menu is that if you let your mouse hover over top of it, you'll get an explanation of what that tool is. But the other thing to take note of is that many of these tools have a little triangle or a little tab on the corner. And that means that another tool or set of tools live there or reside there or are hiding behind that tool to be used also. So we can do two things to see what else is there. We can right click, or if we don't have a right mouse button, we could command click. For instance, I've clicked on the eraser tool, but I also see that there's a magic eraser tool and a background eraser tool. So I'll select the regular eraser tool, and now that tool is active. If I wanted the magic eraser tool, I could go and select that. So if you ever can't find a tool, it's in a location where you thought it was and it's no longer there, the first step would be to right click or control click, command click on it and see if what you're looking for isn't behind the active tool. The very top tool on this vertical toolbar is the Move tool, and we'll use that quite a bit. We use that quite a bit just to settle, accept changes that we've made to things. You'll hear me refer to the Move tool, clicking on the Move tool to accept changes. For instance, when we type text or use the Type tool, Photoshop will want to know that we're completed, that our job is done, and we'll need to click another tool or hit the return key to do that. a lot of times we'll just click the Move tool and accept the changes, and then it puts us in a good position to move that type or that text if we need it. And that would go for images, photos, or graphics also. If we come down this toolbar, we can see there are a number of things. Our selection tools live toward the top, our crop tool, an eyedropper tool to sample colors, we'll talk about. Here's that type tool I mentioned earlier, and if we right click on that, we can see some of the other type tools that live behind it. At the very bottom, we have a zoom tool here. And we'll just take a second and look at the zoom tool. I'll click it and I'll move to the center of this document, and you can see that I have a magnifying glass with a plus sign in the middle. And if I left click once, it'll zoom in. If I left click again, it'll continue to zoom in. If we look up here towards the left hand corner, we can see that we're looking at our document now at 200%. That's why we can't see it all. We can just see a zoomed in view of it. If I move the zoom tool back into the center of the document and hold the Alt key, you'll notice that plus goes to a minus, and I can click now and get the alternative or the opposite of the zoom tool. So the zoom tool by default wants to zoom in. If I hold the Option or Alt key, you'll notice the plus change to a minus, and I can zoom out. You also have the option up here in the upper left to change your zoom tool default to zooming in or zooming out. And I'm looking at this canvas or this document right now at 50%, and that's pretty good. Generally, one way to work with more efficiency is to work in a zoomed out view when we're not doing micro editing, when we're not trying to zoom in and do a real close-up edit of something. If we're working with a larger image on a smaller canvas, zooming out is generally the most efficient way to work, and we'll talk more about that and look at some examples of that later. So the next thing we're going to look at is using the paint bucket tool. And the paint bucket tool is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 tools down. Sometimes the paint bucket tool isn't visible because one of the other tools that lives there, for instance the gradient tool, is selected. So you kind of want to make a note of where it lives on this toolbar, and if it's not in the area where it should be, you just right click on it and find the paint bucket tool. So the paint bucket tool works, it's a pretty simple tool, and it just adds color to an area. And if I want to change the color that the paint bucket tool utilizes, I can go down here and I can click on these swatches to set the foreground color, which is the front color. And if I wanted to make it a light shade of blue, I could use the color picker to choose a light shade of blue, like an aqua here. If I wanted an even lighter shade of aqua, I can slide back towards the back here with my color picker and choose OK once I've chosen the color I want. So I'll click OK. I'll click the paint bucket, and we can change the color of the canvas pretty easily. We could also go over here and choose a color here. Double click on that. That opens up the color picker again. Maybe we want a shade of pink. So we might go in here where we have some of the shades of red. By going to the top corners, we can choose the darkest shade of red, but I'm gonna go to that dark corner of red, but I'm gonna slide back a little bit and find a shade of pink, and we could paint the canvas pink. I'll do one more, change it to a yellow, moving the color picker, clicking OK, and changing it to yellow. So that's how we use the paint bucket. More on that later. The last idea will be managing multiple canvases, managing multiple documents while in Photoshop. So it's not uncommon to have multiple files, multiple canvases, multiple documents open. And sometimes it can get confusing, and files that you know you're working with can become lost or not visible. And you know that the file is open, but you're having a difficult time finding it. So let's look at how to create multiple documents and then how to manage them. So leaving this yellow canvas open, I'm going to go to File, New, And Photoshop remembers that the last canvas document I opened was 800 by 800. That's fine. I'll create another one. Here's a white one. I'll zoom out and I'll change that to green. Just choose my paint bucket, and now I have a green canvas, and we can see I can bounce between the yellow and the green. I'm going to make another one. We can go to File, New, or just hit Command N, but I'll go to File, New, choose and create another canvas, and I'll zoom out one notch, so I'll hold the Option key and zoom out. And I'll make this one blue, go a little lighter blue. There we go. Select the paint bucket. There's a blue one. I'll go one more. And I'll make this one orange. If we look across the top, I have a yellow, a green, a blue, and an orange. And I'm looking at each one. This is a 50%, 50%. I'm looking at them all in a little different size. Maybe I'll zoom this one out to 50 so they're all the same size. So one way to look at them, of these files, and use them, is to click on that tab at the top. Depending on when we've used a file last or a document last, that tab can sometimes be missing. It could be hidden underneath another tab or another file. So one way to manage tabs is to go to Window, Arrange, and you'll notice we get all of these options: tile vertically, horizontally, 2 up, 3 up, 4 up. I'm just going to click on the first one under Window, Arrange, Tile Vertically, and you'll notice now we can see all of our files, all of our documents. And this would be very handy if we wanted to move something from the yellow to the green or from the orange to the blue. We can see all these very nice and neatly. And if we've lost one that's been hidden underneath another tab, this will bring it up. We could also go into Window, Arrange, and Tile Horizontally, and this will just stack these canvases in a horizontal fashion. We can also examine some of the others in here. We could have 2 up, three up, and then we get back to, and this will bring them into different sizes, and we could adjust which one was in the larger box if we wanted. If we go back to consolidate to all to tabs, we're back to where we began. So if and when we need to work with multiple canvases or we've lost one, we can go into Window, Arrange, and we can tile these so that we can see them all. To summarize, in this video we've looked at how to create a new document or canvas. We've looked at the measurement units, specifically pixels and inches. Took a general overview of how the tools are laid out. We've used the paint bucket, and then we've looked at arranging windows or canvases.